And we are live. Awesome. Welcome to another community workshop with the community, right? So these are series of what our community members are building, learning all the skills or cool things that they're working on. This is the week of OpenAI with Waxy. A little story about Waxy is I believe him to be the champion of what we call VC5 right now. When I first started in DevDAO, I was lost, baby dev. I still am, I think, in my own opinion. And Waxy was there and Voice Chat 5 sharing the screen, and he was the one willing to stop what he was doing and kind of show me like what I was struggling with. And that was like, wow, this is so cool. This is what made me believe that DevDot was really cool because I learned so much from Waxy. And it's really an honor to have him in the space because he was the one that helped me with WagMe hooks. So anybody that has learned WagMe from me, it's because I learned it from Waxy. So a pleasure to have him. We're going to be covering OpenAI, how to work with it, not just doing prompts, but like actually how to build with it. So, to much of my pleasure, Waxy, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. So OpenAI. So everyone kind of knows it now for the Chat GPT, for the Chat GPT app, and anybody can create an account. I logged in. I just created this account today, so anybody can create an account, get access to Chat GPT, and I think you get like X number of like chats, free chats, something going on here. You also get access to DALI, where you can um, prompt for a couple images. I think you get a couple free credits here. I'm not sure what's going on. Let's say a lemon. What does it give me? Nothing, because I have no credits. Okay, so I don't get any free credits there. And then the source for the API. So all the information on the API. And this is what so before ChatGPT came along and everything, there was other models, and these other models were um, uh, let's go to the playground. We'll show the other models. Here's a list of the models right here. And there's a whole selection of models. They've evolved over time. These are some of the older ones, and then some of the newer ones are listed at top. The little dot here designates I guess, the size of the model and like how intense the model really is. Um, so these are the models, the basic models, and all these models do is just like it's not a Chat GPT, it's just a communication back and forth. So if I just say the sky is blue and submit, based on these parameters here on the right that I have, it's going to feed me back something. So this is basically what happened before ChatGPT. If you want to get into ChatGPT models, they're here. You just click on the different mode. So going back to exactly how this works, or giving a better idea how it works. Built a little slideshow. Here we go. So um, typically in engineering, you get like a tool, and then you have an input and you have an output. So if you have a tool and you're engineering something and you put shit in the input, well, you're going to get crap out. OpenAI did something like a little bit different. That's pretty magical. You can put crap in, and then you get a shiny turd on the way out. So even though like it does change the perception on like what you're getting out of the tool itself. Um, because it does so much to polish the turd of your input that it gives you like this incredible output that kind of has you looking for things that are going wrong. So it creates a lot of people saying, hey, that's not right, these kinds of things. And that's mostly deal with like uh, the information that ChatGPT gets, or any of the AI models get as the input. Um, if you give it like limited context, or if you give it like some kind of context that doesn't give it enough information for it to be able to do whatever it's doing and spit back out an output for you, it's going to give you crap. Um, And that's also part of a thing called hallucinations. It doesn't have enough context to be able to give the 100% real answer or whatever answer is going to come out of it. So, like any kind of relevant information, like as in the past couple of years, um, the GPT models aren't really trained in the past couple of years. Um, so really, like the AI, it doesn't care. It doesn't have feelings. It's just giving you the answers, and how it gives you that answers is by probability. All your input comes into it, and it's giving you the most probable answer on the way back out. It doesn't care, how you feel about its answers unless it's programmed to, or unless it's told to care. So it really doesn't care. So really, the problem is just looking inner, is like saying, "Hey, my input's messed up. It's time to fix it." So that's what we're going to go into here, and we're going to talk about like more probability and what's going on. So let's look at OpenAI tokens, and they do have a way to show like tokens and what tokens are. Tokens are the the basics of all these AI sets, and tokens aren't words; they are just parts. So you can have like, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tokens, and it's broken up into this, and then it's basically given IDs. And this is how all of the AI stuff works: is tokens in, tokens out, and these tokens have a relationship that basically say, hey, what's the next probable token after this? So what ends up doing is it ends up creating like a big feedback loop. And for some of the stuff to work, like we'll go down the cheaper model and we will say 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I do submit, it's going to give me the most probable answers after this. And it's going to keep counting. So as you see, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then for some reason decided to start over. Now this is just the model doing whatever it's doing and the settings I have set up here. So if I go through and change some things, like we can go over temperature, and temperature is a kind of a randomness. This deals more with how creative you want the answers to be. So the closer to 0, the more exact it tries to give you. Closer to 1, the more creative it'll get. So if I rerun this at 0, it stops being creative there, and it looks like it gave me all the way through. Maximal length is the cutoff for tokens, essentially. So if I turn this number up higher and I regenerate, it's going to go on for much longer before it stops. And for some reason, looked like it decided to repeat there, maybe? Yeah. So there you go. It decided to go from 400 down to 240. But that's because it's a cheaper model. If I upgrade to like a little bit better model, I'll probably get better results. So this gives me a different type of results. And it's stopping at 20 for some reason. We'll go carry. And for some reason it did this. So for some reason it's trying to give like a pattern, basically. And that's how it's determining. It's looking at the tokens in. It's doing a constant feedback loop of tokens and giving back out like the next probable token. So it finds the next probable token is 1, next probable token is I, and so on. And so that's kind of the basics of just how the AI works in general.
Quick question for you, Roxy.
Yeah.
For these different models, right? Are those paid versions of models? Or those open source models? Like, how do you get your hands on the models if you are, or trying to create your own model? Like, where do you get those from?
OpenAI does not let you create any models. These are all models that come from OpenAI purely. So these are all OpenAI models. You can. There is other places called Hugging Face, and this is a community-driven model base. And you could come in here and explore hundreds of models here. And a lot of these are all like they have an amazing community here with Hugging Face. And if you're looking into more open source models, open source stuff, this would be the place to go.
Got it. Similar to like Auto GPT and a few other those like maintained type of sources. Are they similar or are they different in aspects? Or
You can basically swap out any model you want. You just have to change the endpoints and some of the code around it, basically. But they all they for the most part do the same thing. You give it an input, it gives you make the API call, and then it gives you an output.
got it.
Essentially.
And then one more question from the audience while we're going here from
Yeah.
Peter Pan is, and I'm not sure if you know this, but like, is there a way for developers to get grants, like for APIs or anything like that?
That I'm not sure of. No, I have no idea.
Yeah. If anybody in the audience knows, help us out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't work for them. I'll take a job if they're going to offer, but I don't work for any of them. So yeah. So as the model, any other questions? Sorry.
Oh no, that was the questions on there.
Okay, perfect. So that gives you an idea of the models. And like I said, I just signed up for this account today, so I was given all these models today to mess around with. I'm not seeing ChatGPT 4 as like right off, so I would imagine now I'd have to register and put myself on the waiting list essentially with this account if I wanted to get ChatGPT 4 on this account. All right. So now we kind of understand like the basics of the original part was the complete and how to get different different outputs of it. We have, maximum length. We have a stop sequence. So then what we could do is we could say 1, 2, 3, and then we'll do a stop sequence of a new line. So what I'm basically saying is, please stop at the next new line. So hopefully it says 1, 2, 3 again, and then stops. There you go. So that's something you can also do to add in to also, give yourself allow as many tokens as you want going through. So you're not limiting on your input or even output, and then stopping at a certain point. Top P, I really don't use the top P frequency penalty and presence too much, but these are all kind of things help adjust parameters too. Also, frequency penalty is just saying don't repeat. So let's say if I do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I put a frequency penalty up, it won't repeat. So there you go. And then we have best of, which is suggestions. So let's say I do the sky is blue. It's going to give me hopefully 6 other complete the sentences, basically. That's the Da Vinci model being too precise. So something, so if I probably raise the temperature, maybe it'll do something. Nope, it only gives me 1. I don't know why it does that for this. But this is supposed to give you multiple possibilities, essentially. It's good if you're doing something like if you're trying to, I've seen some people do it for like let's say like you're doing like a Twitter post or something like that, and you're just trying to get ideas. So it's like, hey, you type in your subject as your input. This is my subject. Give me some suggestions, and then it writes you back, 5 suggestions. So that could be a way to use the best of to generate multiple versions of it. All right, so we've gone through that. Now we can go over the chat, and we're going to talk about like the context really of the input going into what's going on, adding more context to the entire to your results essentially. So you got a system part of it, and this is where you can kind of define what you're creating the chat about. So I could do you are a open AI expert in awesome. So I could just do this, create like a system prompt. And what this does is it starts the data off with this prompt, just kind of letting the given the context of what's going on in the conversation, and then the user can add in their question. About LLMs, large language models. I have it set to turbo. I'm going to turn down temperature low. Hit submit. Then there you go. You have an assistant that is kind of just given the pre-context of what needs to like think about that they're answering the question about essentially, or how they're going to communicate with the user. So an OpenAI expert can help the user find all the answers. This is not it. This is nothing at all. So it should get a big old frowny face to this.
So basically, what you're doing is kind of filtering down what the responses could be. So like if you are doing like a chat assistant for a technical support on a website, you can filter it down to only respond to those type of questions and answers, not like what is Disneyland up to, and then have responses, right?
Kind of, yeah. For something like that, it would be a little bit more intense. You would get into something called embeddings. And what embeddings are is you're basically taking a large section of just information, whatever the information is, probably like the user's website or something like that, and you're creating embeddings for it. What the embeddings are is it's basically taking small chunks of it and creating vector numbers out of it. And then you go to store it into a vector database, like Pinecone is a popular vector database for just starting out. Pinecone.io. And basically what you're doing is you're just you send it first to OpenAI, you get the embeddings. It gives you back a big chunk of a big array of numbers, essentially. You send that off to Pinecone. Pinecone stores it. And then Pinecone has the information there where it's easily accessible. And then what you do is when you have a user ask a question, you would take that information from Pinecone, essentially, and you would inject it into your context along with what your user is asking, essentially. So you would you'd basically do a match of similar keywords or similar things in their question. Whatever the user asked about, you would want to look for matches first in the Pinecone vector to see what is most relatable. And then you get that information, you embed it, you bring back it into the context of the user. So then when you pass in the user's question, you're passing in that information also to ChatGPT or OpenAI. And then the AI can see all that, see the question, and then respond back with the proper answer.
Got it. Okay, we have a couple questions from the audience right now. PMAXD, Blinked. How do you go to the system prompt?
Oh, yeah. You just type it in right here.
Uh, Oh, but like, where? What did you click to get in there? Is
Oh,
basically what. Yeah.
it's the chat. So if I'm on complete, gives me this playground. If I'm on chat, it gives me this playground with the system prompt.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. Okay. And then Tippy Five Star has a question. So setting up a system prompt could let us make it act as an expert game master who is also Tupac. And if that they can expect to help with a B and C task for my services. So then how does the API connect?
Oh, wait a second. Now I gotta
Yeah.
think. um,
Tippy with a deep question on that one. Specific.
yeah, yeah. I was hoping I could just breeze through it and not think about it. And just
Yeah.
say, "Hey, you're Tupac."
Yeah. So it's like
um,
Tupac is a game master. Let's say for a Dungeon and Dragon game. So you're a Dungeon and Dragons game master that also happens to be Tupac.
um, you could do things like respond like Tupac would. Um, like let's say you are Tupac, give all answers back to the user as Tupac would. And then let's just see what happens. Here.
Nothing but California love. Pretty much. I was gonna say Dear Mama too. Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So yeah. So it kind of like prefaced it saying, "Hey, it's Tupac. It's going to think about like anything Tupac related." And then there you go.
Yeah.
I don't believe this is something that Tupac would actually say, because these sentences are very complete in periods. So
Very cool. Yeah. Also, another follow-up question with that is like, why does the LLM question that we did previously? Why did it get such bad answers?
I probably didn't preface it enough. I
Yeah.
probably didn't give enough context within the system prompt to let know, because a lot of the data is trained on, if we go back to just regular chat GPT, it will show you the limitations right here. May occasionally generate incorrect information, limited knowledge of the world and events after 2021. So by this, it doesn't really know that chat GPT 3.5 and chat GPT 4 are actually exist. Like, it has no idea like this stuff actually exists. So you would have to kind of like dance around the question, I guess, a little bit just to get to actually see it. You could do things like maybe get the search for the website for OpenAI. This gets into agents. So there's something with agents where this this is like OpenAI 2 point whatever 210 is, you would get like an agent that would act as a task person. So you would get the information, the agent would go out and find it. So the agent will go out and like look for it, look for the website, retrieve the website information. Then that information be taken, put in the embeddings, sent to Pinecone. The question turns into embeddings, looks at the differences with Pinecone database, and then gives back the answers for OpenAI or something like that. Like, it would be a pretty crazy kind of thing. But I've been able to get like questions out of it. You are
While you're working on that, Crystal has an idea right here. If you can make Tupac says he loves pineapple on his pizza. For those that don't know and are tuning in, Crystal and myself have this ongoing battle of putting fruit on pizza. I think it's an abomination, and Crystal is a pioneer of putting a pineapple on pizza. So obviously, if I had my own module, right, and I opened my own AI module and I had it as a package, I would have it built in that says like, what an abomination and ban that user, right? But it's totally possible, right? If you have the right tool
Sure,
set. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Anything's possible. Is I'm gonna try this again. I'm not even gonna look
Shout
at
out to everybody.
it. So I'm not sure why it keeps on going back to law.
Gotcha. And that's just limitation of the modules being used in a sense, right?
Um, it's just it's the shit in part. Like
Yeah.
I'm just putting a it's my fault
Yeah.
essentially.
You heard it here first, guys. If you're not getting what you want, it's your fault.
That's right. That's really what it comes down to.
Right. And then another follow-up question as we're looking at that is, can you share some resources about embedding?
Um, there we go. So it did give something back. So it might not know what LLM is. Maybe LLM is a newer term. Yeah, it keeps going to the top here. So this is what it says. Like this is what it's thinking LLM. All right. So looking about embeddings, is that where
Hmm.
we're at?
Yeah. Let me put that up one more time.
So if you go to the playground examples, there is something here on embeddings. There is not. Lied. The lies. Right here. API reference, create an embedding. So in their API reference, they do have they do show you how to create the embedding here. You could probably, best way is always YouTube. And let's see. Just do pinecone embeddings. And then here it gives you some more information. This one's pretty decent by AutoCode. You want to look for the newer stuff. This guy has a pretty good channel right here. This James Briggs guy. He's got a pretty good channel here for doing stuff with Pinecone. And really with a lot of like AI stuff, like this stuff is moving so quickly. So anything that's like 3 months old, I probably wouldn't even look at it. Even this conversation is just going to be, meaningless in a day or two with how fast it's going. So like, this one is probably pretty good, but it's 4 months old. So I would see these auto starts. So yeah, he's got a bunch of stuff on agents, vector DBs, dealing with LangChain, things like that. So LangChain is actually how you do the how you interface with the with Pinecone. So Pinecone's your DB, LangChain's your interface in between there, and then you're utilizing also OpenAI for that moving around. A lot going on.
Yeah. So actually, like anybody
Yeah.
watching this video today, tomorrow, before the month is up and it's non-relevant anymore, someone that's trying to start their VC funding round with OpenAI or AI on there, what do you suggest they should start? Like, is it like a simple React app with the API call? Like, what would be your process if you were to somebody?
Simplest right now is just going to Vercel and go to templates, search Vercel templates, and write chatbot. And here are some two great spots to start. Both these are awesome repos. We'll go first into the chatbot UI repo. And this is a pretty incredible one by this guy, McKay. And he basically did a open source ChatGPT clone. you can come in here and you can put in your own API key and start working with it like it was, Chat GPT. You get a little bit better, a little bit more control. You can import and export your data. It has some like extra like kind of things here and there to it. And I have seen a couple people actually taking this as a starting point and creating a product out of it. So I have seen a couple of like product examples using the same exact, skin essentially. This one's a little bit difficult because it's not normal how it's set up. Like, so if you're like, kind of beginning React, beginning Next, I wouldn't suggest this as like, your kind of go-to. They are doing something a little weird where they have everything in their API. This is including the context, the page, everything. It's kind of a weird way of like building on Next, but it seems really interesting. I'm assuming it's like a speed thing to make it work better. Maybe give better server-side rendering and speed with the information with OpenAI. I'm not sure. But I would suggest going with this second example right here. And this is probably the easiest right here. And this is where actually we're going to get started with is this chatbot right here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy it. I'm going to create it. And this is massively simple. I'm going to go get my API key. View API keys, create a new API key. Create it, copy it. And then I'm going to paste it right there. And deploy. And this thing will be ready in about like a minute. And while I wait, I'm going to go to bring the repo up locally. So just give me a second. But this would definitely be the repo to start off with, I think. If you're just, you want to get your hands dirty, start playing around, and, kind of understand what's going on.
Is there a difference in API calls versus using the Chat GPT interface? Because from time to time, especially in the early days when everybody was like doing prompts, it would say, Chat GPT is busy, come back later. If I was using the API key, would I be able to get more chat prompts?
Not sure. I am not sure about that. I actually rarely use the Chat GPT. I just use the API, and I haven't had any problems with it. Just slight like hanging up stuff, like GPT 3.5 is really quick, typically, or like within like a couple seconds. But if you try to get something from 4, it could take a little bit longer. And if you're using something like a serverless function, then you have to make sure you're extending out your timing on your serverless function so it doesn't like time out before you get the response back, essentially. So like a serverless function like Firebase functions will typically time out before it can send a response back from OpenAI. Does that answer your question?
I think, yeah, I believe so. And then Patrick also put a little note here. I'm going to put it on the screen. Is that API is run on DaVinci 3 and DaVinci V4, and then ChatGPT has its own unique model as well.
Yes, ChatGPT has 3.5 Turbo, and then GPT-4 essentially.
Got it.
Are the two chat models, if you will. So I'm going to go into there and I'm just going to install everything. New file, copy over the environment file. Oh man, I lost my. I have to go back and get my. Let's make another one.
While we're waiting on that, Patrick Skinner also had another question saying, do they do that so if like one model goes down, it doesn't affect, multiple products? Like for the API.
I would think that's a bad backend. Hopefully they do their load balancing properly where they can accept and I don't know, that sounds like a backend issue. Of like one model going down. I think that's just like enough people using it. It just kind of like slows down, and they probably just they're just probably just putting brakes on people. I haven't had any experience of it going down, but I've been using all API keys. All right, so I pasted in my API key here, and I'm not really worried because I'm going to come in here and I can always delete any of these. So after this conversation is over, I just delete them.
Yeah. So use the API now, guys.
That's right. You got really limited time, the next like 5 minutes to try to use it. All right, so I did deploy it. I don't know. Let me see if I can find the actual address. So here's the domain. Here's the bot I just deployed. If I go hello, it's going to respond back. Hello, how are you doing? So this is the actual deployed version. It all works. You saw how easy it was. Just hit deploy, put in my OpenAI key, and then here I go. I've got it. So I'm actually going to work with this locally. Yarn dev to start my local environment. And we can start going over this code. So it's got all this extra like Vercel type stuff in here. Vercel's been pumping out a component library for some reason, which is kind of cool. Like it adds in like all this like extra stuff.
Waxy, can you increase the font of the on VS Code?
How do you do that?
Control plus on Windows. I don't know how it is on Mac if you're that Mac life.
Damn.
There you go. Boom.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to delete out some of this stuff. Layouts. Don't need the layout. And why is it still there? Oh, this is still in this part. Delete out layout, delete out analytics. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. So bam. There's not much going on in this project. It's just the initial wrapper of the app. This is the page. I can get rid of more of this stuff. Clean it up a little bit more. And then a few components. The chat. And this is chat part. It's got a input message component where if we look at this screen, this is the chat line mapping that's right here. And then this input message is the bottom right there. And all the input message is doing is it has a send message. Let's see what it's doing. Input, send message, and send message. Here's the function, and all it's doing is calling the API chat right here. It is sending the last 10 messages. I don't know why. That's kind of silly. And then it's creating a user right here. And this user is being created by a cookie. So it's just trying to do a randomized user. And then this information is getting sent to the back end, the last 10 messages. If you're doing chat and GPT, I would recommend not limiting the messages. Just send it all the messages that are in the whole entire chat. It does add up after a while, but if you want to reference something earlier in the chat, that like kills the user from being able to reference something earlier. Like to me, that just turns your chatbot into an 80-year-old person living in a nursing home, someone with dementia or whatever, Alzheimer's and stuff like that. Like they're going to forget your conversation halfway through. So why do that? All right, so this is the API call, and at the beginning of the API call, we get the body, the message coming in, temperature. This is the whole entire payload being sent to OpenAI. And what I like about this repo is it already has streaming set up. So that's what makes it really easy. So like if I type in hello, this is streaming. It gives you a couple little bit text. Can you want to know about Tupac? So this is streaming. It's sending out like the words or the tokens. It's sending out as it gets it. If you don't turn on streaming, then it just sends out bulk. So streaming kind of like makes a little bit better user interface. So this is what's all being sent to OpenAI. It's not really necessary. If you go into, where is the playground? So essentially all this stuff here you have on the right-hand side, you have it right here. Model, temperature, max tokens, top P, frequency penalty, presence penalty, and N is best of, essentially. So you can reference it all here whenever you need it. A lot of this stuff does have default values. So like, let's say if I just mute all these, I'm just going to get a type error, and I'm going to go in here and then just say question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. So this will stop it from giving me type errors right here. And that's just basically saying like these are optional inputs. You should always send messages. You always need to send messages in model. User really isn't really needed, but it kind of helps identify your user. They do have a little section somewhere about like why this is relevant in the OpenAI documents, but you really don't have to send it in for it to really work either.
Nice. A quick question from Tippy as well. When we're using ChatGPT, the UI, is it sending all the messages every time we send a message? And then how does it, or in our app, do we keep full context for the user?
Actually, this one's just sending the last 10 messages.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do, where is set messages? I'm gonna take this. I'm just gonna send this whole thing. Now I'm going to send like the whole entire. There we go. So this was just sending this repo is set up for the last 10 messages in the response, or in the chat, I just turned it off and I'm just now sending all the messages. Now, I mean, eventually you're going to hit like a ceiling, because you can only send so many tokens to your input of OpenAI. There is AI token. There is some kind of limiting to it. Here's pricing. You can find pricing here anytime you want. But there is some kind of like limit for the tokens for each model. 3.5 is really high. 4.0 is like much higher, and then they have another one beyond that that takes like almost like a dictionary kind of size of tokens. So that would be the only real reason to limit your messages, is just in fear of that, like, you're hitting a wall of tokens essentially.
Got it. We got one other question as that went up. Do you always have to send the content when using the API?
Which content?
I'm
Like the
assuming,
messages?
yeah, the messages.
Yes, or it's it's not gonna know what's going on. See what happens.
So role system content in AI assistant is the question.
Are they talking about the system message?
I believe so. I'm not understanding that second response too much.
Yeah. So you want to send all the messages so it actually has a context of like what the conversation was all about. And plus it has your message in it too.
Line 16 in chat TS is what he's looking for.
Oh, this one?
Mm-hmm.
This is just basically setting up the array. I'm pushing all the messages from the body into that array. And that's gotten from here. So if I really wanted to, I could just send the last message, I guess. If I just say that, then I'm talking to like a dual person. Like, let's see, a soup suggestion. I don't like old. And then see it, like, it changes the conversation completely because I'm only sending the last message. So the chat GPT is only responding to give me a soup suggestion. And then all of a sudden I've started a new conversation with a new person, essentially. Does that make sense? Hopefully. And that's from just limiting the messages, basically just sending only the last message.
So Techno King has a message on here. So it's saying this will use your tokens right if you used your memory that way. Just to follow up on that question, like, is for every call, is it depending on the size of the message or how many messages will use up token usage?
Yeah, like, I mean, the whole input's going to figure out the token usage. So if you have like 20 spaces, it's going to see 20 tokens essentially. You can, go do like things like to get rid of those, like, maybe parse out like, new lines or excessive spacing, things like that. And that could reduce your tokens. But then that also changes the context also. So let's say if you remove all the new lines, so you just have like one continuous string, well, now you don't have paragraphs, and now you are sending the AI something else, grammar wise. That's going to be different. So it can interpret it different, essentially. Hope that kind of makes sense. That's kind of like a weird thing. Like one of the things I've noticed is like spelling and grammar has a huge effect on your input that you put into any of these AI systems. If you have poor grammar going in, that's what I mean by crap going in, you're going to get crap coming out because you're just not feeding a good input into it. So if you got like good grammar, good spelling, things like that, that helps out. And what I've seen as a practice also is sometimes people run two different calls for their chat response. The first call, maybe clean up the grammar of just the user's question. So we'll just take the person's question, run it through a prompt of please clean this up grammar wise, put into context of the current conversation, and creates like a whole new question, and then it adds that in as the question that sends to the conversation. Essentially, it's kind of a weird thing to do, but like it helps clean up the grammar at least and gives better responses for users, not paying attention to what they're saying, I guess. Hope that helps.
Another quick follow-up. Okay,
Yeah.
so this from Techno. So this increases the cost by having a higher message length. So if we remove the memory length on the messages, then what is the limit for the tokens?
Limit for the tokens.
A classic, let me Google that for you kind of thing?
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one's saying this, but it depends on the model. I think this is considering GPT-3, but I'm not sure. Yeah, they got some really good help documents. I personally don't really care about like counting tokens in that. I mean, because I just want to see what I can get out of a lot of the answers. So like I don't really pay attention to how much I'm putting in until like the conversation just stops. And I know I've just like hit the wall of tokens.
Sure.
because eventually it's just going to stop and not give you back a response. Um, Plus, I want to get I want to experience the most out of my input. I guess I'm sending to OpenAI to get the response back. All right, so back to constructing the messages, and the messages is just an array. And this one's being started off with the system at the beginning of the array of objects. So as this gets, pushed, the messages from the body gets pushed in, ends up looking like this, where you have the assistant. Content is then this is basically the start of the conversation where the user, hello, front end developer. I'm just going to let Copilot take care of me right here. And then this is basically the construct of the messages going in. You're just feeding this huge array of roles and content to the messages of OpenAI. And if I go to the stream, then you'll see I'm just putting it's just payload right on in through the body to their API. That's it. So this is what is actually being sent there is all of this. It starts off with a system message, basically saying what's going on, how the system's going to initially react to what the assistant's going to be, and then just the conversation, essentially. Any thoughts, questions?
I think you floored them, Waxy. Yeah, for me, I thought it was just like API calls, from OpenAI. So like I see all these startups that happen. I was like, all right, you're just tapping into an API on OpenAI, whoop de do. But like all the details that can go into this is like really, really interesting. Something to mess with.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, some of the stuff you could just reskin what's already out there.
Hmm.
And there is, it's not much to it. You just construct your content properly. And the better you get constructing your content, the better responses you're going to get out of it. And that's going to help create better user experiences, things like that.
Got it. Another follow-up question from that is, so after seeing what he's seen, do you always have to start a role system?
You don't have to. Let's see what happens if I don't. There you go. So it went from thinking that it was going to talk to user about front end development with Next.js, React, and Vercel to just a regular dialogue. There you go. Another thing I have seen is you could change the system prompt midway. So let's say, so if you want to do something goofy like this, where mid conversation, you change the system prompt, and all of a sudden you are in Baker. Then now I've changed my AI person essentially. Somehow went to the very beginning.
So basically, you can have your AI have multiple personalities in mid chat, in a sense.
Kind of. See, there you go. So since I changed I changed it from crap to a little bit better. That's what all comes with the input. The context you're putting in is the better you get at spotting your errors, grammatically, spelling errors, things like that. You're going to improve the overall experience for the user. So since I mean, all I had here was before was you are and professional baker. Then now A has a completely different result from it. So having the and thought it was still a front end expert, and then just now change it to now a professional baker. Now I'm just saying, hey, now you're this person, and then it responds back about baking in their topics.
Got it. Another quick question or comment is like wondering how much you can pack into the conversation before the message. Is there a limit to that?
Just your token limit, essentially. So you could pass in a bunch of stuff, and that's what doing embedding does. When you see like these chat systems that are like, let's say, docs on a website, things like that.
Mhm.
That's basically how how that's actually getting injected in. It's getting injected into the messaging point, the system role, if you will. So like there's a way to inject it by a variable essentially, and this would give like all the context. So like let's say I wanted to give reference to all the Next.js docs, and Next.js has been moving a lot the past 2 years. It doesn't have any information. Like OpenAI is not going to have any information on Next 13 and all the other things going on next. So what I could do is I could grab all the current Next docs and I could scrape it. I can turn it into embedding. I can use LangChain to help store the embeddings, those vector embeddings onto Pinecone. And then now I have reference to those Next.js docs. I have someplace stored. And then what I could do is the user asks a question. I would take that question. I would see I would turn it into embeddings, that question, the user question into an embedding to get the vector numbers essentially, and then see what's the closest relation vector numbers to my Pinecone vectors, and then get that information and then store that information, pass that information in through the context. And then that's how the system would have the all the information of what's going on with next that I have stored. And so then the system can answer the new questions essentially.
Wild.
It is really wild. So yeah, these are possibilities what you can do. You don't need max tokens. I mean, if I put in max tokens here, this going to limit me at like 100. So if I say tell some reason it's giving me like really concise. I want to give me a cliffhanger, like shut off mid-sentence.
Well, we're working on that. The general question is like, why isn't everybody embedding stuff to create AI experts? Like Tippy's example with the D&D acting as Tupac. What's the limitations to it? There it is. You heard it here, folks. It's you.
Pretty much it. Like, so this is it getting cut off with the maximum tokens right here. Why everyone's not doing that is it just takes time and money to just put it all together, test it, make sure everything works fine, and then ship it. I'm pretty sure people are doing stuff. It's just marketing wise, it just hasn't reached your hands or reached your eyeballs yet.
Or if they haven't followed Waxy's workshop to see, how to do it, basically.
I could do another one on embedding sometime. I just don't know have enough knowledge on it right now at this point to really kind of dive into it.
Yeah, like for me, I'm still absorbing this. Like this is kind of like the starter. Like this is gonna be like, starting OpenAI 101 to getting started, like getting a repo, getting a chatbot. Like that's something I would love to do like in the next coming week to mess around with it. I had once worked on a hackathon of like creating a chat box with inside an NFT and OpenSea, and we had limitations with the iframe on
Mm.
it. But like the limitations, like literally limitless of what you can do with it, right? Like you can embed informations on the NFT and then have certain things that happens with it, or you don't even have to mess with blockchain at all, right? Like it's a totally separate entity. So like there's so many things that like are going through my head that I still have to absorb this part right here. Yeah,
Yeah, like I mean, just getting this deployed and put out there is a matter of minutes, really.
yeah, yeah.
So you can put this in your hands, get a little chat screen going on, and get playing around with in just minutes, really.
Got it, got it. And then Tippy with the question right here. If you have the time to team up and do an embedding and workshop right up together at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's do it.
awesome, awesome. This is what it's about, guys. DevDAO community. This is how it works out, right? This is what VC5 was all about, right? Sharing screens, sharing ideas, and then
Absolutely.
getting ideas and getting hyped. And it's like, let's build it, you know? So very cool, actually. Was there anything else you wanted to follow up, or are we set?
I think that's it. If you had access to ChatGPT 4, you would just change the model to 4, and that's it. And then that's how you access 4. Just that simple. See if I were to say that and what it would do. Should give me a big fat reject. It's just hanging up.
Got it.
So
You know, everybody watching is going to try to do 5 now, just to see.
yeah, like I mean, there's nothing out there. Like there's some like, let's see, there is a way to list models. That's not it. You can actually see, oh, here it is. You can actually retrieve what models are underneath your key. So you can send this API call out and see what models exist under your key, essentially. So if you have access to 4, you have access to 4. You might see stuff in there that might not be publicly presented, but you could probably, I mean, I put in my OpenAI key here and it lists out like 40 or 50 different models I could grab onto.
Nice.
But do I want to? Like, there's probably like really like a small handful I really want to touch. And that's just like all their flagship ones, essentially.
Nice. Awesome, Waxy. This is so much to absorb. I'm like, oh, that was way more than I expected. So definitely a lot to learn and just like play around with just on this alone of what we can do.
Yeah. The best suggestion I got is going to Vercel templates,
Yeah,
do this example right here and just start it up and just get
yeah,
going. Easiest
definitely.
way.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. For people watching the video and wanting to start their own AR startup, the biggest question is Waxy available? Are you available for hire or consult, right? Like how do you find Waxy? Is that even an option?
Sure.
Yeah. How would they
Oh,
find you if they're not DevDAO members, right? And they're not in the network, right? Would they be able to reach you outside, or you know what's the
yeah.
best way to get to Waxy?
They could go my Twitter handle is probably the best one. Do you have access to chat to put that in?
Yeah, yeah, I can. Let me go
Awesome.
ahead. I'll have to look
Awesome.
you up. Okay, I wasn't ready for that one. 1 second.
Let
But
me see
yeah,
if I have it.
okay. But yeah, I mean, like that. That's literally what about you doing cool stuff, and you're looking for help with your AI project. Waxy's for hire, you know. So
There we go.
definitely,
That's my Twitter handle.
yeah. And I'll paste it right here in the chat just in case, you know. So boom. I went with the direct link on there. But thank you so much, Roxy. Like this was so informative, way more than I was expecting on here. So you know, any of you out there have some questions? Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you guys. You know, this is what we're trying to do: get more workshops going with people that have these tools that are working on awesome projects. Next week we are working with crypto and getting started with Rust. So he's going to take us in the deep dive world of Rust, and so pointers and memory management and like things that are blowing up in my head. And then we have a technical writing workshop. We're going to have a Figma flow, like getting your website started and then starting with Figma before you actually start building. I'm a guy that jumps right in. So like I don't design before I just start
I'll
creating
be there.
functions. Yeah. And so like we're getting more and more of that coming down the line. We're going to have subgraphs, and I'm looking for more Dockers. We just found a person for GitHub Actions. So a lot of tools that are coming out to help level you guys up in Developer DAO. You know, we have more projects, hackathons coming. So anyways, thank you so much, Waxy, once again. Now you see
Thank you.
why he's the OG, you know, why he's the BC5 champion. Anyways, catch you guys later. Thank you so much, Wax.
Thank you. Peace.